Communications provides equal opportunities for all legally qualified political candidates in accordance with FCC regulations. If you are a candidate for public office and would like to request equal time regarding content that has aired, please contact our station directly. We will be happy to work with you to schedule appropriate airtime. For more information, please reach out to the station office. 860-456-1111.
Welcome to this Thursday afternoon episode of Right Now with Chris Reddy, Mike DeSonier, and Curtis Eller. There are two of us in studio this afternoon. I'm with Mike. Curtis has the afternoon off. He'll be joining us again next week. We are well into our early voting session for 2025 in this municipal election cycle. You have a few more days to cast your early ballot vote, and then we have Election Day coming up on November 4th. Polling centers will be open on Election Day from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Today, October 30th, is one of those extended hour days for voting. You can still go to your early voting polling center until 8 p.m. tonight. Friday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Make sure you get out and vote this municipal election cycle. A lot of people that I've been talking to in the past few weeks about this 2025 municipal election cycle are asking why this is so important. And this is something that I experienced last year as I was campaigning. I ran into many people while knocking on doors and talking to people in the communities that felt that their vote didn't count. They felt that it was, why waste the time going out there? Why participate in these elections? And in general, these municipal election cycles have been ones that have a fairly low voter turnout. Do you have any idea, Mike, about what the statewide percentage is for municipal elections and voter participation is?
You know,
Do you want to take a guess?
I wouldn't imagine it's too high. I wouldn't think it's over 20, but I know it's not.
It actually is.
Is it?
Yeah,
really?
it is. It is. Actually, out of 2.2 million registered voters, 2023, for the municipal election cycle, the overall state voter participation rate was about 33.7%.
Oh, wow. That's a lot higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah, significantly higher than, for instance, like the referendum when we saw was about 10% just about a month or so ago. We do have some early voting numbers that we want to talk about here. We'll talk about some of the local towns. I do want to make something bring up something as a point. Only 168 out of 169 towns in Connecticut are participating in this municipal election cycle. Did you know that, Mike?
No, I didn't. I did not know that.
Yeah, there's one town that actually still holds on to a spring municipal election cycle, and it is close to us. It's Union.
Really? And
the town of Union has a spring municipal election cycle.
They have a very small number up there, like 600 voters or something.
We've talked about this before in previous episodes, that it is one of the smaller represented towns in that regard. But yeah, 160 out of the 169 towns will be participating in these municipal elections and ending on Tuesday. I'll start off with my town, and then we'll talk about some of the other towns in the area here that are within our listening audience. So far, 11 days into early voting, town of Scotland, we've had about 50 people vote.
Wow.
So we're looking at a little bit less than 5 a day, and I'm seeing that that's kind of the trend across this area. We'll go over some of the other numbers now. You have numbers for Windham, correct?
Yes, we have two locations in Windham that was pushed on from the state legislators this year.
Yep, there was that change legislatively.
And we total was 318 11 days in, and out of that 318, 271 were at the town hall, the original location, and 47 were from Eastern. That adds up to less than 5 per day. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that really stands out is there were no students.
Really?
No students. So,
what do you think some of that is? Like, why are the students deciding that this isn't the election that they're going to participate in at an early voting center that's right on campus? This is the first time Eastern has been offered an early voting center.
Right. Well, actually, a couple students did drop in, and they asked what was going on. The curiosity. They saw the early location, and once they realized that there was nobody that they knew on the ballots. This wasn't their local election, and they were let know that yes, you can vote there, but they had no reason to. They said, they didn't know anybody on the ballots. They had no stake in the game, and they'd rather go vote in their own towns where they knew the players, and they wanted to make change in their own town. So, or stay the same, whatever their opinions were.
Yeah.
So it really goes to show that they are paying attention. The younger people are starting to get more involved, and they want to do what's right. It's not just about making numbers,
checking a box,
right? Yeah. Checking a box. They're actually looking to vote for who they want.
Yeah, understand the policies of these people who they're voting for.
Right.
That's great, and that's something that I did an interview with media up at UConn last year as part of my campaign. And that was one of the things that I tried to impress upon students who are going to participate in the 2024 election is to think about the legacy that you're leaving. You're here as a resident of either Eastern or UConn for a few years.
Yep.
You, for all intents and purposes, the majority of the year are spending time within our communities. But once you leave, what is the legacy that is being left behind from the standpoint of a voter? Because when you vote in these elections, this is the future of our towns. These are the things that are concerning to us. Just before we go too much further, I do want to provide some other numbers for towns around here and early voting. Town of Mansfield, 564 early votes at the town hall. We have, just like at Eastern, with this legislative change that mandated polling centers on campuses of greater than 1,000 students. Last year, there was one for the 2024 election up at the bookstore at UConn. They, so far this year in the 2025 election cycle, have seen 46 people voting. Wow. So virtually the same number at Eastern.
Same. Yeah,
yep.
Yeah.
I did not get the breakdown of how many of those were students, but that brings up another concern, and we talked about this just before we came on the air. While we want voter engagement, we want voter participation, and we value the young people who are part of our communities while they're here as students, we want input from them, and we want them to feel like they're part of the community here. When we are looking at the numbers of students that we are potentially gaining as voters compared to maybe having another early voting location somewhere else that's more convenient for people in the town of Windham or the town of Mansfield, think about going on to either one of these campuses and finding parking. Like, that's not an easy feat by any means. Most people that I know try and avoid those campuses at certain times of the day simply because of the traffic. And now you're saying this is the spot where we want you to go and cast your early voting ballot as a second option. So go ahead.
I mean, I agree with you 100%. I'm not, I stay away from, there's a lot of restaurants and things up on the UConn campus that I would enjoy, but I stay away because it's the college campus and getting around. And even Eastern, we have our once a year our workshop for the council, and I went to it, and I've done a couple others with other boards in town, and finding your way around there and finding a spot to park, and then hiking back to the area, it's quite a walk. So a lot of the people in town are elderly, so it's pretty tough for them. So to expect them to go through that, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, from a convenience factor, those are not the most convenient locations by any means in either of these towns, being a college campus. We know that last year there was the plan for this early voting to be at the Eastern campus, and it was ultimately turned down by the town council. What do you think are some of the better options that you could have as early voting centers here if there was to be anything other than just the town hall?
Well, I'm really not up totally on all this as much as a lot of people would think that I would. But there's a lot of people elderly out in the Windham villages. So I would assume having one in the city and one out somewhere in the Windhams, the problem arises getting a spot that you can have for 14 days.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And with these lower numbers, that's tough as well. I mean, the town hall has the handicap accessibility, the elevators, it has everything. Plus, I hate to be a salesman, but you're bringing people into town, and maybe they're going to have lunch at one of our local Main Street businesses.
That makes sense. Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. Yep. When we look at the voter turnout for the past couple of years, I'm seeing a slight tick up in the early voting participation. Do you think that there's something else that we can do? You're an RTC chair. I'm an RTC chair. We've kind of been told that we need to embrace this early voting. Clearly it's here. It's here.
Yeah.
I think that there's some things that do have to be changed with regard to this one-size-fits-all mandate. We've talked about this on previous episodes also, where there's some sort of an option for the smaller rural towns that really don't have these numbers. You look at the cost, and we've talked about this before, for a per-vote cost to the workers that have to, now man polling locations for upwards of 120 hours during those 14 days of early voting per person. This is a circumstance where these small towns not being funded by the state are going to cost the taxpayer a huge amount of money for very little gain in voter engagement and participation.
Sure. You look at our town alone, and with the 2 polling locations, so it's accessible. It's out there. There's 2 locations, and just payroll alone, not including any of the other expenses that they incur, just the temporary payroll, you're talking $157 per vote is what we're paying. So
that doesn't sound like cost efficiency to me.
It's not. And last night I was on one of the social media platforms. And the mayor put on his thing that, there is no cost to voting. I mean, he said it's not the cost. It's every vote counts. And I agree with him. Every vote counts.
Sure. Yeah.
But at the tune of $157 per vote, I think that's a little excessive. And I do. I think there's a lot of other things that we could do to get the vote out. One of the things that we've looked at is the younger generation and getting them involved and understanding that this is their future. And if they want to someday have a family and buy a home and, put roots down, that this is what they've got to get involved with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings up a good point that I wanted to make. And this was how I've tried to engage in young conservatives, both at Eastern and UConn. Yesterday, I was up at Eastern Connecticut State University, right outside of Webb Hall. We had a tent set up, and we're talking to students. One of the questions that we asked of them as we were kind of engaging and greeting them outside as they were in between classes was, when you graduate, do you think you're going to be able to afford to live in Connecticut?
Right.
And it was enlightening to me how many of them recognized the effect of affordability in Connecticut, and for them coming out of college, where they will now have to find a job that's going to be able to support not only their ability to gain experience in the workforce, but also to look at those things that we, at our age, traditionally thought of in our 20s and early 30s. We wanted to be able to buy a house. We wanted to be able to have a family. We wanted to be able to afford to do those things in Connecticut. And this is something that they are really starting to recognize. I think we're at that tipping point now where voters and taxpayers in Connecticut are starting to say enough is enough. We're at the top of every one of those bad lists, whether it's housing costs, cost of living, property taxes, utilities, insurance. Everything costs us a fortune in Connecticut. And that's where we need to start work. So that was one of my questions. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think you're hit the nail on the head when you're talking about the how are they going to be able to afford to live there? Not only the younger kids coming in, but our seniors. In my family, alone, everybody laughs. Oh, your in-laws move away, but my in-laws had to move away to gain more affordable housing.
Sure.
Because on retirements and fixed incomes, you cannot stay in Connecticut right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same thing when I was out last year campaigning, I talked to many people who were saying, you know what? I'm not even going to vote because I'm on my way out of Connecticut. I can't afford to be here anymore. And these are people who had jobs, worked entire careers, raised families in this area, and now they're saying, you know what? You're driving me to the point that I can't afford to be here anymore, and I need to find something else that's more cost efficient. So that was good. We have a special guest that is joining us in studio here this afternoon, Haley DeSaunier. We thank you very much for your participation last night in the Willimantic mayoral debate that took place at the Senior Center. We were just talking before you came in studio. I spent a little bit of time yesterday at Eastern Connecticut State University, and I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you a question right off the bat. The question that I was asking students up there was, when you graduate Eastern, do you think you will be able to afford to stay in Connecticut and live and raise a family here? What are your thoughts on that?
So I've got some firsthand experience with that. I work full-time. I got out of school, and I want to go back to school, and I'm a CNA, so making a little more than minimum wage, and I can't afford a house right now. I've been looking. I'm looking all around Windham, and there's nothing right now.
Right. It's a really tough market. I mean, it has been, especially in some of these towns, a market from a real estate perspective that has really kind of reached a point where there's very little, inventory available.
Yep.
Some of these towns, you don't see any transactions going on at all for a month that are listed in the newspaper. We've had, in my town of Scotland, so few house sales that one house of a particular type selling in the town can affect the taxes for all the rest of that type of housing, throughout the rest of the town, because of the comparable sales, prices.
Right.
So I think that this is something that, as we're seeing a trend towards younger voters kind of embracing conservative values, family, fiscal responsibility, and seeing how much things cost, that this is something that we need to try and engage in the future now. We have a representative of that generation here, and we're going to talk a little bit about for the rest of our segment here, about your debate last night. So you finally got an opportunity to sit on that stage and talk about some of the issues that you have discussed with residents of Windham and Willimantic, taxpayers in Windham and Willimantic. How do you feel things went last night?
It was good. I mean, it was a great opportunity to be able to get up there, do my first debate, and have the amount of people that showed up and watched online. That was great. It was awesome. It was a really good learning experience. I learned a lot. There were a lot of local politicians there, and I met a lot of people, talked to a lot of people, and learned that really most of the things that I've brought up and most of the things I've been talking about are the same concerns that the people have. The general public pretty much, they agree with those issues. They want those issues fixed.
I think it's something really important that you're showing there is that you want to be the type of leadership that listens. You've done that right from the start. I remember early on your Facebook messages that were asking people to provide input so you could start to learn these issues, so that you could, really kind of engage with the people that you're trying to target as your voter audience. And I think you've done a good job at that. I do want to say a thank you last night. I was there also for the mayoral debate at the Senior Center in town. I want to thank the Chronicle. I want to thank WILI. They did do a great job of producing something that really is of benefit to the voters, to be able to get this messaging out there, to be able to hear from both candidates. I think that the 10 questions did all pertain to things that specifically, are the responsibilities of a mayoral candidate or a mayor in the town of Willimantic. I'm going to be brutally honest, I do think that there was some issues at the beginning that I really wish had not happened. I think that kind of almost created an environment for the remainder of the evening that really kind kind of had people focused on paying attention to the wrong thing, which should have been the messaging of the candidates. I think that there was good attendance. I was really happy to see that there was probably 100 people in that room. The tables were filled. There was standing room in the back only available. I think it was great to see that. I think both candidates, really embraced answering the questions and tried to answer them to the best of their abilities. I really saw that there. I think that you did a very good job, Haley, in answering all these questions that are very pertinent to the town of Willimantic. So, I commend everybody that was involved in putting on something that really was a good, informative session.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, what were your thoughts? I mean, there was some hiccups in the beginning, and no excuses for anyone. The WILI did a great job with the sound and getting it out there. Yep. And it was the Chronicle. It was Nicole's first ever debate. So
yeah, this is actually her first time solely even reporting on an election like this. I know she interviewed myself and my opponent for the Chronicle, the paper, and this is her first time doing this independently.
Good.
What were your thoughts on what were your strong points? Where did you what do you think happened?
So I think all in all it went pretty well. I mean, there were some hiccups at the beginning, but I can't, especially me, I can't hold that against anyone. It was a first for me and Nicole. Yep. Hiccups happen. I've done them in this campaign, and hiccups happen. But the rest of the night went pretty smoothly. I think, a little nervous at first debate, a lot of people there, and, a lot of people that wanted answers, and I wanted to give them answers, and I did the best I could. But once I started talking and, getting into the things I knew about and getting out the message, I was good.
Very good.
As soon as I started talking, we were good.
Good. So we have just a couple of minutes left before we take our commercial break here, mid segment. I want to get the audience to understand a little bit more about you. And we talked about your history as a race car driver. Can we talk about that for a couple minutes?
Yeah, of course.
What are some of the things that you think helped you learn lessons in life from racing? Is there anything that you can kind of say, like, this is something that, I learned through my years of racing cars that really I can apply to how I lead life and the goals that I have set for myself?
So one of the biggest things you learn in racing is teamwork, and it doesn't seem that way because racing is, you think of it, and it's an independent sport, but you have your whole team, you have the track team, and when you're getting into it, like I'm learning politics right now. I've been around it, but I'm learning how to do things more independently, run my own things, and that's the same thing with racing. Yeah, when you're getting into it, when you're starting something new, you have to listen to the right people, but also listen to everyone, hear what everybody has to say, and then you do what's the best for the team. You do what's best for your team. You do what works best for your race car, or in this case, your town. What works on someone else's race car or town might not work on your race car or town.
Very good. Now, how old were you when you started racing?
I started racing quarter midgets when I was 5.
Wow.
And then a bandolero when I was 8 at Waterford Speed Bowl. And then when I was 15, I started racing an SK Light Modified at Stafford.
Excellent. And how has your racing career been? Are you happy with your results?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I enjoy working on the cars and going to the track, and like the track family you develop is amazing. Like the bonds you create with people is amazing. I did take a year off because I graduated high school and started working full-time and getting into politics, so I want to get back into it. There's been a little bit of talk about getting back into it, so we're figuring it out right now.
And you're unique because your race team is also your family, right?
Yes. We've got a couple friends that help, but
yes, but predominantly
we are a family and friends race team.
Very cool. That's awesome. We're about a minute away. We are on the eve of Halloween here. Any plans for Halloween tomorrow?
I will be on Main Street tomorrow handing out candy. I know my sisters are going trick-or-treating, but I'll be here on Main Street.
And do you have any events coming up in the next few days before election?
Yes. So
what do you have going on?
This Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 12, we have a meet and greet at Gilson Square. So I will be there. We'll have some other candidates there, and we're going to be holding signs, talking to people, and I urge everybody to come down.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck in the next few days. We look forward to talking to you after the election. Are you excited? You're almost there. This has been a whirlwind for the past couple months, right?
It really has, but I'm excited. Whichever way it goes, I'm excited. I learned a lot. I've heard a lot from different people, and even if I don't win, I want to continue to work on the things I can do to help people.
Great. We're coming up to the top of the hour here. We're going to go to our commercial break. This has been Right Now with Chris Reddy, Mike DeSaulnier, Curtis Ayler, and Haley DeSaulnier today in studio with us on 1400 AM, 95.3 FM, WILI. Welcome back to Right Now with Chris Reddy, Mike DeSaulnier, Curtis Ayler, who will be joining us again next week, and we have special guests in studio. We were talking during the first segment with Haley DeSaulnier. We also have members from the Columbia candidates for multiple positions in in municipal elections coming up on Tuesday. We're going to talk to them in just 1 minute. We do want to remind everybody that early voting is happening the next 4 days until Sunday. Today's extended hours until 8 p.m. if you have a chance to vote until 8 p.m. this evening. The remainder of early voting is 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And on Election Day, Tuesday, November 4th, the polling centers will be open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. We were talking during the first session about some early voting, and we are in studio with one of our guests from last week, Justin Ryando, who is not only the RTC chair in Columbia, but also a planning and zoning candidate for the 2025 municipal election cycle in Columbia. He is back with two other candidates from Columbia that we're going to talk to in just 1 minute. Justin, can you give us an update on how early voting has been going in Columbia so far?
Yeah, and thanks for having us back, Chris.
Of course.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So as of last night, the numbers that I heard were about 550, which correlates to about 13% turnout, which is way higher than we had expected. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's still a lot for a little town to absorb for 2 weeks of early voting.
Yeah.
But the people have been taking advantage of it, and I think, a lot of it is who's coming out. I think that the Republicans and Democrats have been getting people out. We're seeing some good numbers on both sides, and then obviously all the unaffiliated. So it's going to be interesting to see how it impacts.
That's good. And that is a great number. We were talking about some of the other numbers earlier. You're right up there with the town of Mansfield. That's at like 564. We talked about Wyndham is total between the two early voting centers, a little over 300.
Wow.
So we're looking at the same numbers. We talked about the voter participation rates in the first segment, and I mentioned that as a state average, we're at about 33% for municipal elections. That was the numbers from 2023. Obviously, we're seeing hopefully a little bit of an increase in that in this cycle. But I just wanted to, before we kind of get into your candidates and some issues in Columbia, talk about some of the voter participation rates from 2023 among some of the towns in this area here. And we'll start off with the town of Wyndham from 2023. And you want to take a guess as to what percentage you had for voter participation in 2023?
2023, I'm going to say we were probably not quite 15%.
You're a little over that. That was a good guess, though, Mike. I appreciate that. 22.8% voter participation for municipal election cycle in 2023. Columbia 2023.
I want to say 35%.
You're very close, 39.1. 39.1. So you're a little bit above that state average. That's good.
Yep.
Believe it or not, in looking at this stuff, there was one town in Connecticut that blew all the rest of them away. We're going to talk about that in just 1 second. My town in Scotland, we just edged you guys out, 39.2%.
Nice.
So, like you said, the state average is 33%, 33.7 to be exact across the state. Canaan, do you know where that is? Litchfield County, northwest corner. 63.2% in 2023.
That's really high for municipal.
Yeah,
wow.
Like for municipal election, that is crazy. Like, good job, Kaden. Like, you're getting your voters out there.
Yeah.
That's something. So we're going to continue our municipal election programming. This is our last episode before Election Day. We're glad to have some more local candidates because we really want to provide this platform for local candidates to be able to provide our listening audience with some information about themselves, some information about their platform in their towns. So we're really glad for you guys to be back with us this week, and you have two new candidates that have joined you this afternoon. Justin, would you like to introduce the candidates from the town of Columbia?
Yeah, I'd love to. So with me, I've got Fred Gianelli, who's running for planning and zoning. And I have to give a shout out to Fred because last time I was here, I named off a bunch of our candidates and I forgot to mention Fred, and he let me know of that. So
well, I'm glad he's here to join us this afternoon.
Person. Yeah, so he's currently an alternate on planning and zoning. He'll tell you a little bit more about himself, but we're really looking forward to him getting elected. And we got Gina Jarvis, who's running for Board of Education. I think Gina is one of the most popular people in town, according to Facebook, and that's what's giving us that
Social
direction.
Social media is important.
Yeah, so we've got two really great candidates, and looking forward to introduce them here and let them talk a little bit about themselves.
Sure, go ahead. You can go ahead and introduce them.
All right, Fred, why don't you come
on? Good afternoon, Fred Gianelli. I appreciate the platform here. As Justin said, I'm currently serving as an appointed position for planning and zoning as an alternate, and I'm currently running for a full-time position. Planning and zoning, I think, is one of the most important aspects of local government because it really is the intersection of local control coming into your backyard.
Yep.
It's where you have local power coming in, saying what you can and can't do on your property, restricting the rights of business owners coming in, making a less permissive business environment, which is going to have downstream effects on your growing tax base.
Sure, yeah.
Or even people wanting to live in your town, stay there, grow, and evolve. I'm currently a Columbian by choice, not by birth. Moved to Columbia in July of 2020 with my wife Alicia, and then we dug our roots a little bit deeper in 2021 when we had our daughter Amelia.
Well, congratulations, very good.
Thank you. Born and raised in the town of Wallingford, about 46,000 residents.
Yeah.
I did spend a period of my time living in public housing. I did grow up in a housing project. And so when I do have conversations about public housing, affordable housing, how that would come into planning and zoning, I do have insight as someone who did spend a period of my time living in that. Growing up in Wallingford, I also joined the Wallingford Fire Department as a volunteer at 18 years old. And I did go up through the ranks in 2 terms as a volunteer lieutenant, then as a volunteer captain. Then I did end up working in commercial EMS for a while, and I worked in New Haven County, and a lot of time down in Bridgeport and Stamford. So working in EMS in more urban environments, living in a town of 46 to 50,000 residents, then later living in Meriden, pushing about 60,000 residents, we wanted to live in a place that had absolutely nothing familiar with where I was working and where I was living.
Yeah.
So we found Columbia, where nice, rich, rural character, and I could buy a plot of land to do what I wanted to do.
Very good. So you built your own house on?
No, we moved into an existing property, and we started a small hobby farm. And one of the things that makes Columbia great is, thanks to some of Justin's efforts previously, we can have more permissive home farming. Columbia recently did bring down some of the restrictions we had in residential agriculture. They expanded what we can do on smaller parcels of land. And coming into planning and zoning, I do want to help increase that trajectory, keep going in the right direction, and help make planning and zoning less of an HOA for the town and more of a opportunity for an individual to get some empowerment to do what they want with their property, not be there as a speed bump for a business owner coming in, rather help the business owner find the right means of conducting business while also not ruining the character of the town.
And that's a great assessment because many of the small towns out here in eastern Connecticut are feeling that same type of difficulty in growth and trying to balance that degree of allowing businesses to come into the community but maintaining that character. And there's been some controversy over this in our area here because you have a assistant mayor up in Mansfield who recently categorized rural character as being code word for Anglo-Saxon, for lack of a better term. That's what she described it as. We really are looking at the fact that we are rural farming agricultural communities out here. This has been the basis of eastern Connecticut and the last Green Valley for more than 100 years. So you and I share that with farming and agriculture. I'm a master gardener. I also have a hobby farm out in Scotland. And that's something that I think that a lot of us are really looking for in these small communities out in eastern Connecticut. And I can appreciate that as part of planning and zoning, you have a conscientious effort to keep that in the forefront of what you are looking to do in these towns. So.
Absolutely. And just when I've had family members come and visit me, they've even commented once they get east of East Hampton, it's like in a different state entirely.
Yeah.
That it doesn't feel anything similar to Central Connecticut. It's not like the Seacoast. It's an entirely independent culture. It's its own special character that you can't get in the center of the state, that you don't get along the I-91 or the I-95 corridor.
Yeah.
And then Columbia specifically, with our population density being what it is, we have the availability to keep it. You know, we can have our local character without ruining it by having, you know, too big of a business base coming in. But at the same time, we do have opportunities for business to come in.
Right.
But we always have the NIMBY pop up.
Yeah.
Either people don't want to see something, or they think too negatively of what's coming in, and that's where planning and zoning could be a good intersection right there.
Absolutely.
To make sure that all the NIMBYs and the naysayers aren't blocking positive development, but we still make sure we can have something grow without causing a deficit to the rest of the town.
And I think Columbia has that unique kind of characteristic in that you have this beautiful lake right in the center of the town. You have a very nice community. You have a broad demographic because you do have elderly housing within your town, which is something that planned for properly is a big asset. You've had some very successful developments that have gone in along 66 and on 87 right there in town, and really location wise, you have great access to Hartford. You have great access down 66 to the center of the state. So there are a lot of very positive aspects to Columbia that make it appealing to bringing families in that will, again, help your tax base and hopefully bring businesses in there that are going to help that also.
Right, and I'm currently commuting 3 days a week to New Haven for work.
Oh, boy.
And I wouldn't change anything. I would like to stay right where I am.
Yeah, good. So. Good. Well, thank you very much for coming on with us.
Right.
Anything else you'd like to say in closing?
No, that's it.
Okay, we wish you the best of luck in your candidacy here, and we look forward to speaking to you again after Election Day.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Gina. We have Gina Jarvis, who is running for Board of Education in the town of Columbia. Would you like to tell our listening audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. Again, my name's Gina Jarvis. Some in town know me as Gina Marcantonio because I am a lifelong resident of Columbia. I think, to Justin's point of my popularity on social media, my roots kind of go pretty far into the community itself as well as the surrounding areas. So I contribute a lot of my success to the community itself, but most importantly to the school that I was kind of raised through. I have two kids, one in first grade and one in seventh grade that are currently attending Horse Porter as well. My day job is I'm an assistant vice president of product development at a nonprofit trade association. We really look to help insurance companies through research, education, and collaboration. So education and collaboration are something that run near and dear to my heart. I'm really dedicated to giving back. That also could attribute to some of my popularity. Yeah. I did 7 years in the PTO, a lot of that time as treasurer, and got us through, the hard times of COVID. So we had to do a lot of creative fundraising, a lot of creative community involvement work. So I've often been boots to the ground when it comes to really getting involved, and I look at this as an extension to continue that work. So I'm running on the stance of a couple pillars, but I'll first and foremost say that the students are at the heart of every decision I make. So the first is I really want to promote academic excellence, giving teachers what they need to help each kid thrive, and importantly, kind of celebrating achievements, which I think is really important. And that could be in community involvement aspects, that could be in academic respects, and that could be in athletic respects or more, right? So I also want to continue to improve communication. The current board has done a good job at starting to make movements towards that. I think in a continuous improvement mindset, there's more that can be done there. And then maintaining fiscal responsibility, which means close partnership with, I think Mike Carroll was on last week in Financial Planning and Allocation Commission. I'm a really good listener. I care about the town deeply, and I want to utilize that broad network I have to collaborate across parties and across towns to really drive positive influence in the school system.
Good. So one thing that is very common amongst many of these small towns around here is that we're always concerned about enrollment in our schools. How's enrollment been at Horace Porter for the past couple of years? Was there a dramatic change after COVID? Because we've noticed a couple of schools that have seen a decrease in population. And then when they changed the starting age for kindergarten was another one where they created kind of like a hole where, for instance, in Scotland Elementary had to combine 2 grades because there simply wasn't enough students that were there.
I'm pretty sure we have not experienced that in our town. I from what I hear and what I know is there's such a high demand, especially in our preschool program, to get into our preschool program. That's actually one area I'd like to have more conversations around. Is there more opportunity to bring more students in? But that is something we've been fortunate not to be faced with. We actually have class sizes where we've had to increase the number of teachers allocated to each grade, and I think that's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
we have the
absolutely.
space in our school as well, which is a positive thing.
Very good. Now, from Columbia's standpoint, you have from pre-K until 8th grade in the elementary school, right? And then they have the options for high schools in the area like RAM.
Yeah. That's a very unique aspect to our school system is our students do have some options for high school. And I think that's one of the things I talk about when I'm talking to people about my candidacy is that broad network that I have with, I went to Lyman Memorial High School in Lebanon because at the time Porter had a contract with Lyman, Windham, and then you could go to tech schools if you applied. So having the opportunity for our students to strategically choose where they want to go to high school, right now it's E.O. Smith or RAM, is a great thing for us. And I think that brings opportunity to our Board of Ed specifically to network and collaborate with these surrounding towns on, mutual conflicts or mutual issues that may arise for us. One thing that gets brought up sometimes is, gosh, there's a lot of curriculum changes that get pushed down to our schools, and that's costly. Well, let's talk to each other across the boards of eds, right, and figure out who's doing it best and figure out if there's a solution that could benefit our school.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for coming in and talking to us about Columbia, and we wish you the best of luck in the next few days.
Awesome.
We're almost there, only a few more days, then we'll have our results.
Yeah,
so
great.
Thank you all for coming in. Justin, would you like to say anything else to your listeners in Columbia?
Yeah, I just want to thank you again for having us. We just encourage everyone to get out and vote, whether you're going to do it early or on the day of on November 4th. We've got, like I said, we have a great slate of candidates. You can tell that they really care about the community. That's what they're focused on, and we just appreciate everyone participating and casting their vote.
Great. Well, thank you all very much for everything that you do. I said this last week. It really takes a special type of person to not only go through the election process, but to step up and say, this is what I'm going to do for my town. So thank you all for that. We appreciate it. You're welcome to stay in studio with us for the next 8 minutes. We're almost done here. We're going to talk about just a couple more things. And I'm going to continue on what you started to say, Justin, about getting out and voting. In general, we've talked 33% as a voter participation rate for municipal elections. These are such important elections for the future of your towns, and it starts at this local process. We need to recognize that the candidates that we vote in for municipal elections, for our town councils, for our Board of Education, for our Board of Finances, in these towns, we're preventing bad policy from coming down from the state of Connecticut on us. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because of the special session that the legislative body in Hartford is looking to initiate on November 12th through 14th. I started thinking about why it is that a week after elections, we have to have this special session. And it sounds like there's going to be 3 big components of the special session, one of them being the housing bill. You mentioned this a little bit, Fred, when you were talking about planning and zoning. And my concern is that with an emergency session, we're avoiding the true legislative process. There's no public hearing. There's no real debate on this. I guarantee this is going to be something that's going to be dumped on legislators with very short notice before this special session starts. my concern is that they're delaying this until after the municipal election cycle to not affect the outcome. And that's why this is being done. There's plenty of reasons why this is not a good idea. From the first fact that when there isn't collaborative viewing and assessment of these bills that are coming out from Hartford, putting unfunded mandates on our small towns, forcing our school budgets to continually increase on us, we see that errors come up in these bills. We see that there is inconsistencies between different points of these bills, especially the big omnibus ones where they're throwing all sorts of things in to try and get it to pass. This was a housing bill, 5002, HB 5002, that passed the legislature, was vetoed by Governor Lamont, went into this whole dark behind closed doors, past 120 days of discussion in this, where there's been very little talk between the two parties in Hartford. These are the elections that are so important. I cannot emphasize this enough for everybody to get out there and vote. Get out and vote in the next 4 days or on election day, because this is what is going to directly affect your family's budget, your pocketbook, your wallet, your cost of living in Connecticut. This is where we have to start. We are seeing some changes in the trending of voters since 2020. People in Connecticut, particularly in the rural towns, in fact, 150, I believe it's 153 out of 169 towns since 2020 are leaning conservative. So we have to capitalize on some of this momentum, get people out to vote, and make sure that we're starting this process. We can all agree that we want to make sure that everybody has housing in Connecticut. But it has to be a collaborative effort. It can't be one party talking to billionaire developers behind closed doors. There's a reason why those developers are not coming to Connecticut, and it's because it's not profitable. And now they're doing 40-year, deed restricted properties where they're going to have 30% of that property of housing be affordable, while the other 70% is market rate. These are things that are going to hurt our communities. Do you want to make a comment on that, Mike?
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And another thing that we have to watch out for, and planning and zoning, all that's involved with, is the big developers coming in and land banking. Maybe not as much in Columbia, but Willimantic, a lot of the bigger buildings, they come in with no intention. Some do have intention on building, and some have intention on just banking that property. And that puts nothing on the tax rolls. That it does nothing but hurt the town and the other surrounding businesses. So,
yeah, we're gonna end up.
They talk about housing, but you've got to kind of mesh it all in and make sure it fits the community.
Yeah.
You don't want to put a giant complex in where you don't have the schools to support it, or you don't have the fire and the police to support it.
Any of the infrastructure, any of it, water, sewer, gas, all of it.
Included.
Yeah.
And we think about these things after. Mm-hmm. You see the big shiny project and you forget about everything else that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think looking at everything holistically, and all of those unfunded mandates or those requirements that basically are stripping the decision making out of the locality and
right.
forcing it upon, and that's I think people misunderstand too. It's not that every single one of those ideas might be a bad idea. It's just that not all of them fit the community.
Exactly.
So who's going to make those decisions or make the best decision other than the person living in the town and their representatives? So that's really what we're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. And right now, the way that they want it to go is for a state legislator from somewhere else telling us what to do. So it really is defeating that purpose of having local planning and zoning commissions, when the ultimate end result is that a developer is going to come in. If they're told no, they're going to sue you. Your town is going to have to pay for it, and it's going to go through anyways.
Exactly.
So these are things that we really have to be concerned with in the future of Connecticut. And one thing that I want people in Eastern Connecticut to pay attention to is that I grew up at the other end of the state. I came from Reading, right down near Danbury, and I look at those communities, how I remember them 30 years ago, and I see the communities that are out here. And if you want to see some of the growth problems and issues that those towns like Bethel and Newtown are facing right now, look them up. That's our future.
Yep.
That's what we have to try and prevent by putting our candidates in that are going to look at these issues in a responsible manner and say, yes, we all want to work towards this, but it has to be done at a rate that is acceptable to the taxpayers in these towns. We can't just force these costs from developers onto municipalities where we can't afford it.
Yep, totally agree.
So, yeah. All right, well, we're coming up to the top of the hour here. We want to thank our guests from the town of Columbia. We have Gina Jarvis, Board of Education candidate, Fred Gianelli, Planning and Zoning, and, of course, our chairman of the RTC from Columbia, Justin Ryandow, who is also P&Z candidate for the town of Columbia. We want to say thank you very much for this episode, listening to this episode of Right Now with Chris Reddy, Mike DeSaunier, Haley DeSaunier in studio with us still, and we will talk to Curtis Ayler again next week when he returns to the show. This has been Right Now on 1400 AM, 95.3 FM, WILI.